Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Great to have you here with me today. Tropical edition, we are here. We're going to be watching our southeast coast system. Could we have a tropical storm on our hands over the long 4th of July weekend? How much rain could we be looking at? And how strong could the winds get? And we're also going to be watching on the rest of the tropics through the middle to latter part of the month. The intertropical convergence zone out here by the Cape Verde Islands is going to become alive, especially the later part of the month. And we could see some tropical systems traverse across the Gulf of Mexico, maybe becoming tropical in nature. Could we eventually have a tropical storm or hurricane? It looks like we have multiple chances of storms. And we'll also be looking at your July 4th long weekend, see which areas are going to see sun and which areas will see storms. Let's get into it. And here we go with the infrared satellite picture of our system. Yeah, it's still disorganized here across the extreme eastern Gulf, going to be crossing Florida. And that is why off the southeast coast we have this zone that we're going to be watching. It's a very broad area of low pressure forming on the end of a frontal boundary here. So you can see a lot of convection firing across much of the Florida peninsula. All right, so taking a look at the tropics here. Obviously, our number one system we're going to be watching is our little area here. Actually, it's a pretty big area off the southeast coast. As we stretch through July 4th into the 5th here, you can see it emerging off the Florida coastline. And here it is. It's obviously a stalled frontal boundary. It's taken root here along the southern edge. And July 5th, it does not move much. You can see, obviously, it's blocked here to the east with our big area, our subtropical high. If I can get this actual pencil to work, there we go. So there's our high pressure system, and it's kind of stuck here between a couple areas of high pressure. Hence, it really can't move out this way, nor can it move out this way to the northeast or the east. Look at the rest of the tropics, though. Just take a little... Ooh, look at this. So south of the Cape Verde Islands, we're going to start seeing things really start to flare up and spin up here. And we do have another area southeast of Bermuda we'll be watching as well. This could pop up on a National Hurricane Center outline soon. But here it is, July 7th into the 8th. You can see the storm system off the southeast coast just continuing to stall. This is much different from the previous run, I have to say. This one actually has the storm retrograding back southward, so that kind of tells me these high pressures are stronger than originally thought, and these areas of low pressure moving up through the Great Lakes and Northeast are not strong enough and progressive enough. The timing is just off. So here we go. This may actually pivot more heavy rain back towards Florida. So this is a development we're going to have to keep a very close watch on. This could be something to definitely watch. Look at the tropical moisture getting ensued up here, plumed right up the east coast, July 10th into the 11th. And look at that, heavy rain just continuing. So pivoting out, what does that mean? Whatever happens with this system, it obviously means there's going to be waves of low pressure to the west here. And you can see the first wave of it, second wave, third wave. This is going to be a very interesting system, and we may actually have a couple tropical systems form out of this. Look at through the 13th into the 14th. This is another stalled frontal boundary. We may be looking at more tropical development off the southeast coast, and maybe even to the eastern Gulf. Look at by the 15th here, we're watching some sort of tropical potential on the tail end of this front. So the fronts are going to be a focus, especially since they can't move to the northeast or east due to all the blocking that's going on. Here it is, July 16th into the 17th. It's really in agreement with the European model, remarkably this far out. So we may be looking at a Gulf tropical system here as it moves west. Now let's just back this up. I'm going to show you the rest of the tropics here. I don't want to forget about the rest of you. Jamaica, Cayman Islands, I know you need some rain here. It's been hot. Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and it's been dry. But look at this. The only areas I can see, Nicaragua through Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, Barbados area, St. Lucia here. These areas will see some scattered showers moving through, especially as we head into early next week. Now, watch this feature moving through just south of Jamaica. We may actually get some showers to kick up on the north side for Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. This is a little bit of a wave disturbance area, and you can start to see some dust here. This is the dust showing up as it approaches the Lesser Antilles. And look at this out here. This is a big old tropical wave coming off the Cape Verde Islands here. That's something we're going to keep a watch on as we go towards the middle of the month. We're really going to start to see tropical wave action. Look at this on the 14th, though. This is pretty remarkable. Cancun, very dry. Look at much of Mexico here. Even through the Caribbean islands, you're only seeing some few showers moving through the Lesser Antilles here. Florida is just getting inundated with system out of system here along the East Coast. So we're going to continue to watch the Gulf as we go through the middle of the month. And look at this. Big old tropical waves coming off the African coastline. I want to show what's lining up here. Here's our last frame. So these storm systems, look at these tropical waves. They are slowly starting to come further north. And as they do, this intertropical convergence zone is going to come more into the MDR, more favorable areas for development. Let's take a look at the Euro. All right, so thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our European model analysis. Here's our storm off the southeast coast. Obviously, no surprise here, showing that frontal boundary. This thing's forming at the tail end of a frontal boundary. As we progress through Saturday into Sunday, yeah, that's the big show in town here. So it's going to be taking a lot of the moisture east of Florida by Saturday here. So we're going to watch for that. For parts of the Caribbean here, we have this tropical wave south of Jamaica heading towards Nicaragua. Also another wave southeast of the Lesser Antilles here. And we're going to watch this low up along the southeast coast, very much like the GFS. Although, look at this Sunday. This is getting some of the heavier rain further north into eastern North Carolina. So we're going to have to watch the trends on this. We may have a little bit of an issue with Euros wanting to progress this a little bit further to the north. Look at that, all the way into eastern Virginia. So we'll watch these trends. It is interesting that the European is a little bit more progressive with this system and eventually taking it a little bit up the east coast here. We'll look at that momentarily as we get into the North Atlantic mode. Now, look what happens Tuesday, July 8th. Yeah, we're still kind of dry. I know you need the rain around Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Dominican Republic. It's been really hot through here. We're going to start to see some scattered showers, Trinidad, Tobago area, southeastward here. And we're also going to take a look at some showers here moving through Belize. So our high pressure, our subtropical highs anchored well east of Bermuda here. Look at this tropical wave. We also have another one right around the southeastern Bahamas through Dominican Republic here as we head through next Tuesday, July 8th. And as you can see here, we just continue to push these showers and thunder showers further west here. This takes us through July 10th. You can see a surge of tropical moisture with this strong wave moving through the central Lesser Antilles through Puerto Rico and parts of the Dominican Republic. So, yeah, stormier times are ahead here. I think the intertropical convergence zone really starts to bounce further to the north here. And that is also going to bring a wave over towards Central America, as you can see here. Showers continuing through the southern Lesser Antilles here. And look at this big old mess along the east coast. We'll have to watch this system. This is an area of low pressure. Could we see another tropical storm try to make a run here off the east coast right around July 12th and 13th? It's quite possible here. And as we continue through time, you can see another tropical wave here southeast of Trinidad, Tobago. More showers breaking out across the northeast Caribbean islands here. And let's see, as we head through the middle of the month, are we seeing those massive tropical waves showing up here on the Euro? Well, we have a little bit of an area off the coast of the Carolinas once again. This could be another tropical system. Here's the Bahamas, and then here's the Lesser Antilles. So things are looking a bit more active as we head into middle part of July, and I'll zoom this out momentarily here on the European run. But look at this. Yeah, we'll take a look at the big picture here. Let's get rid of that just momentarily. You can see the Eastern Gulf here filling up with what looks like another tropical wave here, so we'll keep an eye on this. But all in all, as we head through the middle of the month, you can see the Gulf off the southeast coastline here. These areas, we'll be watching the intertropical convergence zone on the southeast corner of your screen here. So we may have a couple areas of tropical storm development here. The western part of the Gulf through July 18th. Let's take a look at the zoomed out part of the North Atlantic. All right, so the bigger picture here, there's our area off the southeast coast, likely our next tropical storm. Look at this tropical wave action out here southeast of the Cape Verde Islands. This is what I wanted to show you here on the European run, zoomed further out from what I was showing you the last couple minutes. Look at these double barrel highs out here. Let's get that out of the way. In the Atlantic, you can see looking pretty active here. Intertropical convergence zone. You kind of get the idea as we just progress. Here's July 9th, July 10th. Look at this. Some of these lows coming off the U.S. East Coast. Would not be surprised if we flare some of these up as well. So let's just back this up just a little bit. What does the European model do with our weekend system here? So it kind of brings it up just off the northeast mid-Atlantic coastline here, and then kind of absorbs it into this frontal boundary, bringing a lot of moisture just east of Nova Scotia. So that is pretty interesting there. So as we continue through time, you can see July 10th, July 11th, July 12th. Ultimately, these tropical waves continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger, as you can see here. So this is July 18th. Intertropical convergence zone still far to the south, watching these areas, the Western Gulf, off the East Coast. All right, so I wanted to show you the future radar. I don't usually show this during the tropical session here of the video. I usually do it during the synoptic session, but since this system is so close to the United States, I can actually show you the HRRR future model of this storm system. Look at it, July 3rd, as we go through the rest of your July 4th here. July 4th at 4 a.m. Here it is, moving off the Florida coastline here. Tropical moisture moving just off the Carolinas. Let's get a good idea of what's going on here. So you see it moving across here, 1 p.m. It's out over the Atlantic, and I think we're going to start to see development by this time. The HRRR is handling this pretty well, it seems. And then, of course, it kind of gets stalled out here. Here's the last frame. So there is more impulses. Obviously, there's a front that's running right through here. And you can see even some impulses back through Texas here. This is a very elongated area of low pressure. And we're going to start to see rain kind of pick up again in middle to south and central Florida here. Through the 5th into the 6th. So this is something we're going to need to watch very closely. And look at these spiraling bands. I think by the 6th into the 7th, these are going to be pushing ashore here into North Carolina. Sea surface temperature analysis. Yeah, where this system, our southeast coast system, is going, look at the major 2 to 3 degrees above average. Even the Gulf here is above average, but look at this cold pool of water from the Saharan dust, also some upwelling with some systems that have been cranking out here. So yeah, the East Coast is prime here. And we take a look at the Western Caribbean here. We're looking at our European run for liquid equivalent precipitation totals. Yeah, I know, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, you can't catch a break here. You're desperately need some rain to cool things off. Here through Tuesday, it's not looking more than 10 or 20 millimeters. Same back through Dominican Republic, maybe as high as 30 millimeters. But look at up towards northeastern part of Honduras and Belize. We're looking towards 60, 80 millimeters. But here it is. This takes us all the way through July 18th. You can see most areas staying 20 to 40, maybe as high as 60. Here, look at towards Portland Parish and eastern Jamaica up towards 100 millimeters. Same over here towards Dominican Republic, getting upwards of 60 to 80 millimeters. Looks at Puerto Rico, though. Nothing more than, say, a quarter to a half an inch. Eastern Belize, up towards 136 millimeters. So the GFS run here, we're looking at rainfall. Not impressive here on the GFS either. So this takes us through the 13th into the 14th. We're starting to see some moisture surges here into Central America, the usual areas, eastern part of Honduras. And this takes us all the way through the 19th. You can see Jamaica, western and eastern tips. Some areas barely getting 30 to 60 millimeters here, locally higher to 60, 80 millimeters. And look at here, parts of Dominican Republic, yeah, the higher elevation areas, you could squeeze out close to 150 millimeters. Eastern part of Puerto Rico as well, you may see upwards of 3 to 4 inches on this model. So interesting around the Bahamas as well. Things will be moistening up. Cayman Islands, there's a rain hole here at only 16 to 20 millimeters. And here we go with the GFS into the Eastern Caribbean. Yeah, things are going to be moistening up here through the Lesser Antilles. This takes us through the 12th. So yeah, it's not tremendous rain, 40 to 45, 50 millimeters. But there's the Lesser Antilles. all the way through the 18th and 19th. You can see we're going to moisten things up a little bit here, 60 to close to 100 millimeters in these areas around Puerto Rico as well. And we're also looking at the European model here into the Eastern Caribbean. You can see the Southern Lesser Antilles all the way up through Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. We're looking about 13 to 25 millimeters through Monday here. So we're not looking at too much, but as we head through the middle part of the month, you start to see this pattern where we're going to see a surge of tropical wave action here into the Eastern Caribbean, moving to the northwest. Obviously, that's going to increase totals into the 40 to 80 millimeter range here, a little bit lesser than it was on the GFS. All right, so the European model, let me show you the eastern part of North Carolina here. Yeah, the Euro kind of keeps most of the 2 to 3 inch amounts here along the south coast. And then the next system later next weekend, really moistening things up towards 5 to 6 inches here. And here we go for Florida. Yeah, we're still going to see some of this rain retrograde and move across Florida. So it takes us all the way through the 18th here. Obviously, the first week here, over the weekend, another 2, maybe 3 inches. And then look at that, surging more moisture, 3 to 5 inches. And here we are with our GFS for the Florida area. There it is through the weekend. A lot through central Florida here, lesser amounts north and south. But you get the idea. Look at that. Through late next week, we're adding more heavy rain here. Parts of Florida. As we go over this is with a couple systems, actually. Especially that system come the middle of the month that tries to go westward across the northern Gulf. This could be dropping some tremendous rainfall totals. Look at this. We're adding 2-week rainfall totals. Some areas approaching a foot of rain, 6 to 12 inches of rain. And here we go, looking at the GFS here into parts of North Carolina, eastern North Carolina. Look at those rainfall totals. So over the weekend, there you have it. Mostly southeast coast. So the Euro and the GFS in agreement. Now watch as these frontal boundaries interact with some of these tropical systems. There's going to be a couple tropical systems here. Look at this. By the end of the 2-week period, you could be looking at some areas approaching 6 to 10 inches here into southeastern Virginia, eastern North Carolina. All right, so the rest of July here on the CANSIPs model, yeah, eastern part of the Gulf, southeast coast, that is where the action is going to be the highest. Parts of the Caribbean as well, southern Lesser Antilles, and watch out, the wild card is going to be the Cape Verde area as we get later in the month. I think we're going to see some potential for some early systems into August. Look at how things get cranking here. Yeah, the Cape Verde season is going to blast upward. That's going to send a trajectory of tremendous stormy action across the Caribbean. Look at the eastern, northeastern Gulf off the southeast coast, all the way up into the mid-Atlantic, above average precipitation into September as well. Keep an eye on this. This could be trouble for the U.S. East Coast. Look at the Caribbean just socked in here. Interesting, the south central part of the Gulf is below average. And as we continue through October, pretty interesting. I think we're going to have a lot of systems cranking out here in the MDR. All right, wanted to show you the Eastern Pacific here. Look what is going on here. So we go out here in time. We got what's left of Flossie. Our next system is going to be further to the south and west, further away from land. So yeah, we're cranking out the hurricanes out here. But the good news is it looks all the way through July 13th here. We're staying most of them. Here's July 14th away from the coastline. This one, though, looks a little close to Guatemala here and the extreme South Mexican coastline by the 14th. All right, so the Western Pacific here, look at here, Seoul, South to Korea, dodging a lot of those raindrops, Tokyo, Japan, all the way down the Japanese islands here, South Korean Peninsula. You're not looking for rain until later on the 4th into the 5th here. So there you have it. We are looking at a Typhoon Mon here. This storm is continuing to move towards the northeast, thankfully away from the Japanese island. So that is some great news. Yeah, that's going to recurve out here into the Western Pacific. So this could, it's not going to be anything major. But our next system behind it, look at this little system. This could become a typhoon. It's showing up a little bit smaller, actually a lot smaller on this run today. So it kind of brings it up here between Shanghai. Here's South Korea. Could this become a potential Shanghai problem or even South Korea? You can see we have some showers up towards Seoul here. by the 13th into the 14th. And then look at this. It kind of gets entrained up here into the Yellow Sea between China and South Korea, and then eventually gets pummeled up here into North Korea. But unusual, you can see a lot of dryness here along from Seoul, South Korea, Shanghai, over to Tokyo. Usually it's the rainy season in here, so it's kind of interesting. If we just zoom out here, yeah, Philippines, yeah, it's been mainly dry here across these southern areas, but the northern areas just keep getting hit with all this tremendous tropical moisture. Here's the last frame on July 19th. You can really see we may have something trying to form here in the extreme western Pacific. All right, so tropical session, I showed you the future radar for the southeast. Now I want to show you the rest of the areas. Look at this. There's not much to talk about other than our southeast system and the severe weather out here into the northern plains and extreme upper Midwest here. Look at the high pressure that's dominating. You do have some showers here into parts of coastal and South Texas through the 5th. Here's your 4th, so you're getting some shower and thunderstorm action across Florida as well. And there it is across the Northeast. There's not much to talk about here. You do have some mesoscale convective complexes that do try to drop down across Ontario here, but nothing to write home about. The big story is going to be here from the southeast coast to the Gulf and all the way. Look at this. There's another spin up trying to form here off the mid-Atlantic coast. But all in all, we're looking at a really nice weekend. All right, so picking up where our future radar left off, here is our system hanging out off the southeast coast. Of course, that is where all our eyes are going to be on all weekend. It doesn't move much all weekend. It does start to pivot more towards the Carolinas here, with much of the moisture remaining, obviously, on the eastern side. We have this system across the north here. Through July 8th, that's going to be moving through parts of the interior Northeast. So these continue to slow these systems down. You can see there's our area of high pressure off the U.S. East Coast, well east of Bermuda by this point. But here it is, July 9th. We're looking at a storm system moving through the eastern Great Lakes Northeast. Doesn't look like anything major until we get to the 9th. It picks up some tropical moisture. We may look at a squall line here moving through the mid-Atlantic, right around the I-95 corridor, into the 10th, moving up through parts of New England here, and trying to form some sort of coastal. Looks like we did lose our isobars here again in our areas of low pressure. Let's see if we can pick that back up again. We've had a lot of problems with our products lately, but here we go. Let's kick this into motion. Just waiting for it to load here. So as we continue to go out here in time, there it is. And we lost our isobars again. Hopefully this gets fixed. Hopefully submit a ticket or something. Here we go, July 12th into July 13th. You can see this forming off the coast. I'll show you clearly where the low pressures are on our European model in just a minute. So here it is off the U.S. East Coast. We're looking at another stalled frontal boundary. Whoop, there we go. So South Florida, all the way up the East Coast, another front dropping down here. So all in all, we're staying very active here across Eastern North America. But there it is, last frame, July 16th. This area, that's what we're going to be watching. Potential another tropical wave heading on into the Gulf. We could be looking at some formation. All right, so let's take a look at the European run here. Picking up where our future radar left off, you can see what's going to be happening through July 5th and 6th here. There's our system sitting right off the southeast coastline here, Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia. So let's continue to go out here. There's the European taking it up towards eastern North Carolina Monday, and then slowly and progressively absorbing into our system here Tuesday across the Ohio Valley as this runs into an area of high pressure to the east, so it weekends. But yeah, many of you have questions. What's going to happen later weekend? Parts of Ohio, you could get into some stronger, severe thunderstorms Monday into, yeah, there it is, later Monday for the interior Northeast here. So that's a system we'll be watching very closely. Also, look at this system back here, July 8th. You could be looking at a massive mesoscale convective system here across parts of the Midwest moving down into the plains. And then as we stretch through Thursday of next week, we may be looking at another tropical system trying to form along the U.S. East Coast. So that is a trend we're going to be watching. Look at how it's coming together with this area of low pressure inland. So it looks interesting. Maybe something going coastal here by July 11th as they combine forces and move off the coast. You can see these blocking highs up here to the north. That keeps these systems trying to at least move a little bit east here as we go through the next several days. So look at this through July 12th. You can see some stormy action. You're going to see a lot of storms come out of the Midwest, kind of move down here towards parts of the Carolinas, and then try to make some moisture runs up here into the mid-Atlantic. And look at South Florida here. We got a little bit of a wave, some stormy action moving through around July 12th into the 13th. We'll keep an eye on it here. Another area of low pressure trying to initialize off the U.S. East Coast. And here it is. We get into right around the midpoint of the month here, 15th and 16th. You see this tropical wave here into the eastern Gulf. This is an association with a stalled frontal boundary. You're going to see a lot of these flare-ups, I think, especially early to mid-season here. And then as we stretch through the 16th into the 17th, we see two distinct areas, one in the north-central Gulf, one off the North Carolina coast. Very nice weather further inland, though, across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, into the southern plains. But there you have it. Active weather pattern. All right, so let's take a look. Here's the GFS rainfall. This looks pretty interesting. Here's the southeast coast. Latest run showing more rain now here into central Florida. Some areas up to 4, 6, maybe 8 inches. Look at eastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. That is really concerning. And then look what starts to happen. There's that wave that's moving across parts of the north central Gulf, right around the middle to latter part of the month here. Look at this. Yeah, we're going to have to watch this. We may have multiple tropical systems forming from the Florida area westward to Louisiana and upward to eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia. Many of these areas getting, a 2-week period, getting into 7, 8-inch range. Look at parts of Florida upwards of 10 inches here, and parts of southeastern Louisiana up to 7 inches. And many areas interior, we're looking some areas close to 3 to 4 plus inches. All right, so taking a look at the European run here. Look at this. Yeah, so the Euro takes a lot of the heaviest rain just offshore here. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see. The GFS, I'm kind of siding a little bit more with the GFS here. Euro's a little bit too progressive. But here we go through the middle part of the month, through the 18th. Yeah, that means we're going to see more rain moving up through eastern North Carolina with our second and potentially third system, 4 to 6 inches. Florida, yeah, on the Euro, it's not looking as impressive, but we're seeing about 3 to 4 inches here. In many areas further inland, we're looking at those 2 to 4 inch amounts. And before we continue with more weather coverage, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, please smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. Don't forget, I respond to pretty much all your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe bell notification button, especially ahead of this busy hurricane season. And speaking of hurricane season, if you haven't watched my 2025 Hurricane Outlook, it's a link at the end of this video and a link in the description down below. Let's continue, everyone, with more weather. NAO Index, it is really positive. You wouldn't guess it with all the blocking going on. And with the MJO Index, this is quite puzzling too. Most of the models taking us into quieter phase 3, 4s, and 5s. Doesn't seem very quiet, though, does it? And here we go with our Canadian weather outlook. We're going to take a look at the next week or week and a half. So here we go. We move through July 4th. Most of these systems staying pretty far to the north here. You can see up towards Hudson Bay. And then another storm system, July 4th, moving across Ontario into July 5th, giving some beneficial rain here to southern Ontario. We're going to start to see some rain breaking out here across Alberta. That is some great news as well with the wildfire situation continuing to put a dent in it. So that is some great news. All in all, you can see what's going to be happening. Southeast Canada is going to be getting wetter here as we see more of these blocking areas of low pressure. A Pacific system pushing into British Columbia. Hopefully we can get this to cross the Rockies. Here it is on July 10th. Pushing into Alberta and Saskatchewan here. Look at Nova Scotia down here, right around the 10th, getting hit with some very heavy rain from that coastal system, potentially combining forces with that tropical storm potential off the East Coast. So this takes us through the 11th on this run of the GFS. You can see moving through Western Ontario here. And then if we just switch back to the previous one here, we can get an idea. If we continue to go out here in time, picking up with the 11th into the 12th, there it is. Eastern Canada starts to flip a little bit less active, while the west out here, look at where the wildfires are burning. That is some heavy rain. That's some great news. Some big-time systems really wind up here. I think we just lost our isobars here again. This keeps happening on this product here. But there it is, the last one. You can see this moving up across Quebec. Stormy times are ahead. Look at this big old comma shaped up here. Northern Alberta, that's some beneficial rain for those wildfire areas. Okay, so our Canadian rainfall, liquid equivalent precipitation totals here. On our European run, you can see all the way through the 18th here. Great news up here in the parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. We're starting to see those 60 to close to 80 millimeter amounts. Some areas close to 100 millimeters in these yellow zones, southern Ontario, Quebec. A little bit less here into southeast Canada and the Canadian Maritimes. All right, so your 4th of July here, look at this heat. Yeah, that's a lot of 90-degree weather. Northeast Ohio, eastward, you're holding on to some 80s and even some 70s in interior parts of Northeast here. So it'll be a nice day into Saturday. You start to see this heat pushing 90s into most of the Great Lakes, for that matter. You're still holding on to 80s here into parts of the Northeast, but watch this. You're overtaken by plenty of 90s here along the I-95 corridor for your Sunday. 70s up here into the northern Midwest into Monday. Look at this. Yeah, you're seeing plenty of 90s up the I-95 corridor, but you're seeing some cooler 80s up here into parts of the upper Midwest. And then into Tuesday, July 8th, look what's happening. You get this massive heat dome out west, and the lakes, upper Midwest and Northeast, staying nice into the low to mid 80s. Some beautiful summer weather into Wednesday as well. We're keeping that heat a little bit at bay further south here into the 90s. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers, bringing them to Scranton, Upper Susquehanna, River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. We are looking at a beautiful 4th of July heading up towards right around 79, 81 degrees into Saturday. It climbs into the upper 80s, still sunny skies into Saturday and Sunday. Get into the lower 90s, but Monday we have the chance of showers and thunderstorms into Tuesday as well. We'll see a slow cooling trend throughout next week. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone. Share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.